My name is Cairistìona. Welcome to the Professor and the Heretic, a series of conversations I have with Professor Harold Harishchandra Higginsbottom. We take familiar stories, historical claims, and comfortable assumptions and ask what happens when we start poking at them. Today we turn to one of the most famous stories in the Bible, and perhaps one of the most influential stories ever told. Slaves in Egypt, Moses and Pharaoh, the plagues, the flight into the wilderness, and the birth of a people called Israel. Our question sounds very simple. Did the Exodus happen? Or perhaps, by the time we finish, the question will be whether an oral history is worth the paper it's written on. Professor Higginsbottom, did the Exodus happen?
Good afternoon to you too.
I thought we might begin with something simple.
The historicity of one of the foundational narratives of Western civilization, before tea.
Preferably.
Very well. My answer is define happen.
You lasted approximately 4 seconds before becoming a professor.
It is a legitimate question.
All right. Did the events described in the book of Exodus happen more or less as the Bible describes them?
In that form and on that scale, most historians and archaeologists would say the evidence does not support it.
That sounded suspiciously like no.
It is a no to one question. It is not necessarily a no to every historical question hidden inside it.
Such as whether some smaller historical event lies behind the story.
Exactly.
Then perhaps we should make one distinction before anyone begins throwing tablets at us.
An excellent precaution.
We are asking about historicity. We are not deciding whether Exodus is sacred, inspired, meaningful, or theologically true.
Quite so. Archaeology is remarkably poor at detecting divine purpose.
Have they tried a smaller brush?
Repeatedly.
So our question is narrower. What can historians recover about the events behind Exodus?
Much less than either devoted believers or devoted skeptics sometimes imagine.
That sounds promisingly inconvenient.
History frequently is.
Let us begin with Egypt. Do Egyptian records mention Moses?
No contemporary Egyptian text presently known to us mentions Moses.
Do they mention Israelites enslaved in Egypt?
Not by that name in the circumstances described in Exodus.
The 10 plagues?
No.
Pharaoh pursuing escaped Israelites?
No.
An Egyptian army drowning?
No.
Then case closed.
Not remotely.
I thought I might get away with it.
The silence of the Egyptian records matters, but not quite in the way people sometimes imagine.
Because pharaohs did not have a habit of recording humiliating defeats.
Precisely. Egyptian royal inscriptions describe Pharaoh winning battles, crushing enemies, restoring order, and being magnificently favored by the gods.
One begins to suspect a slight editorial bias.
You will search a long time for an inscription saying, His Majesty made a disastrous tactical error and everyone drowned.
So if Pharaoh really suffered a catastrophe, he might simply neglect to mention it.
Certainly.
Which gives defenders of Exodus a legitimate argument.
It does. But it does not make every missing event historically invisible.
Because royal inscriptions are not our only evidence.
Exactly.
We have settlements, tombs, pottery, administrative texts, military installations, animal bones, and rubbish.
Rubbish is among archaeology's most faithful witnesses.
Because nobody writes propaganda on a broken cooking pot.
Not usually.
We should also remember that most Egyptian documents did not survive.
An essential point. Papyrus burns, decays, gets reused, disappears beneath later settlements, or simply fails to survive 3,000 years.
So the absence of a papyrus saying Moses was here proves very little.
By itself, almost nothing.
But scale changes the argument.
Dramatically.
Exodus speaks of about 600,000 Israelite men leaving Egypt, apart from women and children.
Yes.
A literal reading, therefore, implies a total population perhaps reaching into the millions.
Which is no longer a small band of laborers slipping unnoticed across a frontier.
It is the population of a substantial ancient country getting up and walking away.
With children, animals, possessions, food requirements, water requirements, camps, deaths, births and waste.
A great deal of waste.
Archaeologically useful waste.
There speaks the professor.
Quite.
People often respond that nomadic camps leave little archaeological evidence.
And that is true.
20 families camping somewhere for a week might vanish almost completely.
Yes.
2 million people wandering for 40 years are a different matter.
Very different.
So the problem is not simply that archaeologists have failed to find Moses' sandals.
Correct. It is the cumulative absence of evidence corresponding to a migration of the scale described in the biblical narrative.
And Sinai was not entirely beyond Egyptian observation.
No. Egypt maintained frontier defenses and routes connecting the Nile Delta with Sinai and Canaan.
Forts, wells, patrols, and roads.
Exactly.
So the popular picture of an immense population wandering through an administrative blank space is misleading.
Very much so.
Does that mean a smaller group could not have left Egypt?
Not at all.
A few hundred people?
Entirely possible to lose archaeologically.
A few thousand?
Still much easier to lose than the biblical numbers.
So the evidence challenges the scale much more strongly than it disproves every possible departure.
Precisely.
What about the name Ramesses in Exodus?
An intriguing clue.
Exodus says, the Israelites built the store cities Pithom and Ramesses.
And Pyramesses became a great royal center in the eastern Nile Delta during the Ramesside period.
Especially under Ramesses II.
The pharaoh who apparently regarded any surface without his name on it as a personal challenge.
Statues, temples, obelisks.
If he had owned luggage, it would have been monogrammed.
Which is one reason Ramesses II became the favorite pharaoh of the Exodus.
Yes, the association is not purely a Hollywood invention.
But the name does not prove the story occurred during his reign.
No.
Why not?
Because later writers routinely use familiar later place names when describing earlier events.
We might say, Julius Caesar invaded France.
Exactly. Caesar himself would not have called it France.
So, Ramesses might be a later geographical update.
It might.
Or it might preserve a genuine memory of the Ramesside period.
It might.
There is that maddening middle again.
Evidence has an unfortunate dislike of binary choices.
Then there is Moses himself.
Indeed.
His name has Egyptian connections.
It has long been associated with Egyptian naming patterns.
Related to names such as Thutmose?
Yes, Egyptian names frequently contain an element related to birth or being born.
So Moses carrying an Egyptian-looking name is genuinely interesting.
Very.
Proof of the biblical story?
No.
Evidence that the tradition may contain authentic Egyptian material?
That is a much more defensible statement.
Which prevents us from putting the entire story into a box marked pure invention.
Precisely.
Then, where do we first find Israel outside the Bible?
Now we reach one of our most valuable pieces of evidence, the Merneptah stele.
Merneptah was the son and successor of Ramesses II.
Yes.
And near the end of the 13th century BCE, he commemorated military successes in Canaan.
Correct.
Among the peoples or places he claims to have defeated is Israel.
Yes.
This is widely accepted as the name Israel.
It is.
So an Egyptian inscription gives us Israel and Canaan around 1208 BCE.
Approximately 1207 or 1208 BCE, depending on the chronology used.
Does the inscription describe Israel as a city?
Interestingly, no.
Explain.
Egyptian writing used signs that helped indicate whether a name referred to a city, country, people, and so forth.
And Israel is marked as a people.
Yes, not as a conventional city-state like some neighboring names.
So by about 1208 BCE, Egypt recognizes a group called Israel, somewhere in Canaan.
Exactly.
Does Merneptah say Israel came from Egypt?
No.
Mention Moses?
No.
mention an exodus?
No.
Once again, Pharaoh preserves exactly enough information to annoy us.
Ancient history runs largely on irritation.
But this gives us something precious, a fixed point.
Yes.
Whatever Israel's origins were, Israel already exists in Canaan by about 1208 BCE.
Correct.
Now, archaeology becomes interesting.
Extremely.
Because the traditional picture says Israelites arrive from outside Canaan.
Yes.
They invade the land and destroy Canaanite cities.
That is the broad narrative in Joshua.
Did archaeology confirm it?
Not in the tidy form 19th and early 20th century interpreters once hoped.
Some Canaanite cities were destroyed.
Certainly.
But not all at the same time.
Correct.
Some were not destroyed during the relevant period.
Correct.
And some places in the biblical conquest account create serious chronological difficulties.
Yes.
Jericho being the celebrity offender.
Jericho has supported more chronological arguments than many actual cities have supported inhabitants.
The site certainly suffered destructions during its long history.
Several.
But matching those remains neatly to Joshua is difficult.
Very.
So archaeology does not give us one grand conquest layer corresponding to the biblical campaign.
Precisely.
What does it show instead?
Around the transition into the Iron Age, many small settlements appear in the central highlands of Canaan.
The region that later becomes strongly associated with Israel.
Exactly.
And the material culture looks rather local.
That is the crucial point.
The pottery does not announce fresh from Egypt.
No.
The houses do not.
No.
Agricultural practices do not.
No.
Instead, there is substantial continuity with Canaanite culture.
Yes.
Which leads many scholars to argue that early Israel emerged substantially from within Canaan.
Precisely.
Canaanites becoming Israelites.
At least a substantial proportion of them, yes.
That can sound startling if one grew up with the biblical story.
Because the biblical narrative draws a sharp boundary between Israel and Canaan.
Israel arrives, Canaanites are already there.
Archaeology suggests the human boundary was considerably messier.
How does one people become another without a mass invasion?
Quite easily, historically speaking.
Easily?
Political systems collapse, villagers relocate, pastoralists settle, local alliances change, new religious identities emerge.
Old loyalties disappear.
New ones form.
And people who once identified one way begin identifying another.
Exactly.
Ethnicity is not something an archaeologist simply digs out of the ground.
Correct.
A cooking pot does not carry an Israelite passport.
Nor does a house declare its theology.
Though certain practices can become markers of identity.
Yes, but they require careful interpretation.
The famous example is pig bones.
Some early highland settlements show remarkably little evidence of pig consumption.
Which sounds temptingly biblical.
And therefore demands caution.
Because people can avoid pigs for reasons other than Leviticus.
Ecology, economy, availability, and cultural preference can all matter.
One should not discover the Torah every time a pig bone disappears.
An admirable methodological principle.
Still, food can become part of identity.
Absolutely.
So, we may be watching an Israelite identity form gradually among people already living in Canaan.
That is one influential interpretation.
And now, I think we reach the real mystery.
I suspect we do.
If most early Israelites came from Canaan, why does their national story insist they came from Egypt?
Precisely.
The Bible got it wrong does not actually answer that question.
No, it merely restates the problem.
Why Egypt?
Exactly.
They could have given themselves glorious native ancestors.
Kings, warriors, demigods, founders descending from heaven.
Instead, they say, we were slaves.
Which is an extraordinary national origin story.
We were powerless.
Yes.
We were foreigners.
Yes.
We were oppressed.
Yes.
And we became a people because we were delivered.
That is the theological heart of Exodus.
So even if historians cannot recover the biblical event, they still have to explain the memory.
Exactly.
Could a much smaller group really have come from Egypt?
Yes, that is one serious possibility.
Most Israelites emerge locally, but one smaller community joins them from Egypt.
Perhaps bringing memories of labor, flight, or deliverance,
And eventually, that minority story becomes everybody's story.
which is not at all unusual in the formation of nations.
A small group can contribute more cultural influence than its numbers suggest.
Religions, laws, rituals, and founding stories do not obey demographic proportionality.
The Levites have sometimes been proposed as that group.
Yes, though we should label that clearly as hypothesis rather than established fact.
Partly because Moses and some other names in Levite traditions may have Egyptian connections.
Correct.
So perhaps there really was an Egyptian strand woven into Israel.
That is possible.
There is that word again.
Possible is the little donkey carrying most of ancient history uphill.
Poor thing.
He has tenure.
What about the Habiru or Apiru?
Another tempting connection.
Because Habiru sounds rather like Hebrew.
Yes, unfortunately, ancient history cannot be solved merely by noticing that two words resemble each other.
Spoil sport.
The Habiru appear in late Bronze Age texts across the Near East.
Were they an ethnic people?
Probably not in the ordinary sense.
What were they?
People on the margins of normal political society. Fugitives, mercenaries, displaced laborers, raiders, and others outside established structures.
So Habiru seems more like a social category than a nationality.
Exactly.
We cannot simply say Habiru equals Hebrew.
No.
But they show us a world full of displaced people.
Very much so.
Workers could flee.
Yes.
Peasants could abandon obligations.
Yes.
Mercenaries could move between rulers.
Constantly.
Refugees and outlaws could form new communities,
Certainly.
which gives us some of the social ingredients from which a new people might emerge.
Precisely.
There's another fact modern readers often miss. Egypt did not simply sit next door to Canaan.
A crucial point.
During much of the Late Bronze Age, Egypt actually dominated Canaan.
Yes.
Egyptian garrisons and officials operated there.
Correct.
Canaanite rulers paid tribute and appealed to Pharaoh.
The Amarna letters give us marvelous examples.
So someone could live in Canaan and still live under Egyptian imperial power,
Precisely.
which raises a rather heretical possibility.
At last you are earning your billing.
Could, coming out of Egypt, preserve, in part, a memory of Canaan itself escaping Egyptian domination?
Versions of that hypothesis have been explored.
Not people physically walking from the Nile to Canaan,
Not necessarily all of them.
but communities becoming free of Pharaoh while already living in Canaan.
Potentially.
And perhaps that memory later combines with memories belonging to people who really had lived in Egypt.
Now you are thinking in terms of composite memory.
Several historical experiences becoming one story.
Exactly.
Which brings us to oral tradition.
At last.
Suppose a family tells a story for 200 years.
A great-grandfather escapes a war.
His brother had been imprisoned.
A cousin crossed a desert.
Another relative lost the family farm.
2 centuries later, one heroic ancestor may have done all 4.
The chronology contracts.
Geography improves.
Awkward relatives vanish.
Awkward relatives usually vanish first.
Coincidence becomes destiny.
Escape becomes deliverance.
And everyone insists great-grandmother told it exactly this way.
Although great-grandmother herself told 3 versions.
So a story can preserve something real while radically reorganizing it.
Precisely.
And writing does not instantly freeze the story.
No. Written traditions can also be preserved, revised, combined, and interpreted.
Biblical scholars see layers and different traditions within the Pentateuch.
Yes, though scholars debate the details of how and when those layers developed.
The final story need not correspond to one original event.
That is the important point.
One tradition may contribute Egypt,
Perhaps,
another forced labor,
perhaps,
another escape,
perhaps,
another wilderness wandering,
perhaps.
another covenant,
Yes,
until many strands become one. Exodus.
that is one useful model.
Then, looking for the event behind Exodus may itself be the wrong question.
It may be.
Perhaps we should look for historical experiences, plural.
That final S does a great deal of work.
And then, around 1200 BCE, the whole Eastern Mediterranean world begins to convulse.
Now we reach the late Bronze Age collapse.
Cities burn.
Some do.
Trade networks fail.
Yes,
Empires weaken.
yes,
Populations move.
very much so.
And Egypt's grip on Canaan eventually weakens,
Precisely.
which creates room for new societies.
Including the highland communities from which Israel emerges.
And new populations appear along the coast as well,
Yes,
including people with connections beyond Canaan.
correct.
The people we eventually call Philistines.
Yes,
And now we finally encounter the wonderfully ominous modern label, the Sea Peoples,
several different groups, actually, bundled together under a modern name.
including the Peliset,
Yes,
widely associated with the Philistines.
correct.
And Pharaoh Ramesses III claims to have defeated these groups in dramatic battles.
He does.
Now I return to the speculation that started this entire discussion.
I feared you might.
Could those upheavals somehow have become part of the Exodus tradition?
That is a considerably better question than asking whether the Sea People simply were the Israelites.
You are about to say, but.
Several times.
I knew it.
We must examine the Hyksos, the Habiru, Ramesses III, the Peliset, Egyptian propaganda, and a rather inconvenient piece of chronology.
The Merneptah Stele again.
Our faithful nuisance.
So next we ask whether these different historical ghosts could somehow have found their way into one very famous story.
Precisely.
You have been saving that phrase, haven't you?
Since approximately 1208 BCE.
Then let's pick up there. Israel is already in Canaan by about 1208 BCE, but we still do not know how the Exodus story came to be.
Precisely. And that leaves us with several possible historical ghosts to investigate.
Beginning with the Hyksos.
A sensible place to start, because the Hyksos give us something tantalizing, a real population with Western Asiatic connections leaving Egypt.
Which sounds suspiciously like Exodus.
Until you look closely.
Who exactly were the Hyksos?
During Egypt's Second Intermediate Period, rulers of Western Asiatic background established themselves in the Nile Delta.
Their capital was Avaris.
Yes, eventually they controlled substantial parts of northern Egypt and ruled as pharaohs themselves.
Which presents our first, rather large problem.
Indeed, the Hyksos were not an enslaved population groaning under Pharaoh. Some of them were Pharaoh.
That rather rearranges the casting.
Considerably.
What happened to them?
Egyptian rulers from the south fought them. Around the middle of the 16th century BCE, Ahmose I finally defeated their regime.
And drove them out.
Their forces were driven northeast toward the Levant.
So we genuinely have Asiatic people leaving the Nile Delta and moving toward Canaan.
Yes,
Pharaoh. Conflict, Egypt, departure. Canaan.
precisely the sort of combination that causes historical eyebrows to rise.
Then why not simply say the Hyksos became Israel?
Because several centuries stand between the Hyksos expulsion and our first clear evidence for Israel.
And defeated rulers are not quite the same thing as liberated slaves.
Quite.
But oral tradition can turn things upside down.
Certainly, defeat can become victory. Several people can become one. Chronology can collapse.
Could the Hyksos expulsion have contributed something to later Exodus traditions?
Conceivably. What we cannot do is turn conceivable into therefore it happened.
There is our bell again.
Footnote.
Bell. Bell.
Footnote.
I still prefer the bell.
Later Egyptian tradition makes the subject even more interesting.
Manetho?
Yes. Manetho was an Egyptian priest and historian writing in the Ptolemaic period, more than 1,000 years after the Hyksos.
His original work is lost.
Largely. Important portions survive because later writers quoted or summarized him.
Including Josephus.
Yes, Josephus used Manetho while arguing about the antiquity and origins of the Jewish people.
So a later historian quotes an earlier historian describing events already ancient when he wrote.
Welcome once again to ancient history.
Josephus saw the Hyksos as connected with his own ancestors.
He did, although reconstructing exactly what Manetho originally wrote is complicated.
A quotation from a lost history about events over a millennium older than the historian.
Now you understand why archaeologists become emotionally attached to broken pottery.
Pots at least have the decency not to misquote one another.
Usually.
So the Hyksos provide a possible distant memory, not a straightforward exodus.
Exactly.
Let us return to the smaller exodus idea.
One of the more interesting possibilities.
Most early Israelites emerged from Canaan, but a smaller group really did come from Egypt.
Yes.
Perhaps they experienced forced labor.
Perhaps.
Perhaps they escaped.
Perhaps.
Perhaps they were expelled.
Also possible.
They join a larger population already forming in the highlands.
And bring a powerful story with them.
We were oppressed.
Our God delivered us.
We crossed from servitude into freedom.
Exactly.
How does one minority's memory become everybody's national memory?
Because nations are not formed by conducting genetic audits of every founding story.
Mercifully.
A small group can contribute institutions, rituals, laws, religion, or stories far beyond its numerical importance.
So, a minority's exodus becomes Israel's exodus.
In principle, yes.
Even descendants whose own ancestors never lived in Egypt can eventually say, "We came out of Egypt."
In the language of collective identity, exactly.
Not literally genealogical for every person.
But foundationally true for the community.
Which is rather different from calling the story a lie.
Very different.
The Levites have been suggested as the possible Egypt-derived group.
Yes, though that remains a hypothesis, not an established solution.
Because some names and traditions associated with the Levites appear to have Egyptian connections.
That is one of the arguments.
Moses, most obviously.
Yes.
So a religious group could have carried an Egyptian memory into a larger Israelite population.
Possibly.
There is that poor, exhausted word again.
Give it water.
Now the Habiru.
Another group frequently dragged into the genealogy.
Because Habiru resembles Hebrew.
Yes, but resemblance does not establish identity.
The Habiru were not one ethnic nation.
That is the important point.
They appear as people living outside normal political structures.
Fugitives, mercenaries, displaced workers, raiders, and other marginal people.
Which tells us something valuable even if they were not Israelites.
Very much so.
Late Bronze Age society contained mobile and displaced populations.
Yes.
People could abandon one ruler and attach themselves to another.
Certainly.
Workers could flee.
Yes.
Refugees could form new communities.
Yes.
Mercenaries could become settlers.
Certainly.
So a new people might form from several social ingredients.
Precisely.
Rather than marching into history fully assembled.
History rarely provides factory packaging.
There's another ingredient, Egyptian rule within Canaan itself.
An essential one.
Pharaoh's authority extended into the land where Israel later emerged.
Yes, Egyptian bases, officials, and political influence were present in Canaan.
Local rulers answered to Egypt.
In varying degrees, yes.
So Canaan could experience liberation from Egypt without physically leaving Canaan.
Exactly.
Suppose one tradition remembers people leaving Egypt.
Possible.
Another remembers people in Canaan escaping Egyptian domination.
Possible.
Later memory combines the two.
That is the sort of process we must at least consider.
And then the whole regional system begins collapsing.
Around the transition from the Late Bronze Age into the Iron Age, yes.
The famous Late Bronze Age collapse.
A wonderfully tidy name for an extremely untidy historical process.
There was no single collapse button.
No.
Warfare mattered.
In some places, certainly.
Drought and climate stress.
Likely important in parts of the region.
Famine.
Quite possibly.
Earthquakes.
At some sites and periods.
Internal political failure.
Certainly plausible.
Trade networks breaking down.
Absolutely.
Migration.
Very much so.
So civilization was not murdered by Colonel Mustard in the library.
More like 6 people pushed it down the stairs during an earthquake while the kitchen was burning.
Much more historically satisfying.
And much harder to put on a diagram.
The Hittite Empire disappears.
Yes.
Ugarit is destroyed.
Yes.
The Mycenaean palace system comes apart.
Yes, across the broader period of disruption.
Egypt survives.
But weakened.
Its old imperial system in Canaan does not.
Eventually it disappears.
And that leaves space for smaller communities to develop new identities.
Precisely.
Including Israel in the highlands.
Yes.
And along the coast, the Philistines.
Exactly.
Which finally brings us to the Sea Peoples.
First, a warning label.
Naturally.
Sea Peoples is a modern collective term. The Egyptians themselves name several different groups.
Peliset.
Yes.
Chikar.
Yes.
Sheridan.
Yes.
Dinyan.
Yes.
Weshesh.
Among others.
Do we know where they all came from?
No.
The Aegean?
Connections with the Aegean and Anatolia are important in many discussions, but individual origins remain debated.
Were these entire nations migrating together?
That familiar picture may be too simple.
But the Egyptian reliefs show carts and families.
They do in one famous context, which helped produce the image of great migrating populations.
What is the alternative?
Some scholars emphasize smaller warrior groups, raiders or mercenaries, for at least part of the phenomenon.
So the label may combine several kinds of movement.
Exactly.
Migrants.
Perhaps.
Refugees.
Perhaps.
Raiders.
Certainly plausible.
Mercenaries.
We know some such groups served as mercenaries.
People displaced by the collapse itself.
Quite possibly.
Which means the Sea Peoples may be less a single people than a symptom of the collapsing world.
That is an excellent way to put it.
And now Ramesses III enters with trumpets.
Metaphorical trumpets, I hope.
For the moment.
Ramesses III ruled Egypt's 20th dynasty and faced major conflicts early in the 12th century BCE.
Including the groups we call Sea Peoples.
Yes.
His temple at Medinet Habu shows spectacular battles.
Ships, archers, captives, defeated enemies, and Pharaoh magnificently restoring order.
Royal propaganda.
Royal propaganda of very high quality.
Meaning, the battles may be real, but the presentation is hardly neutral.
Precisely.
Pharaoh never loses.
According to Pharaoh, Pharaoh has never even had an unfortunate afternoon.
The Peliset appear among his enemies.
They do.
And Peliset is widely associated with the Philistines.
Yes.
Archaeology seems to support some movement of people into the Philistine coastal region.
It does.
Pottery with connections outside Canaan.
Most famously.
Different food habits.
Yes.
Other cultural changes.
Yes.
So at least some newcomers were involved.
Very likely.
But Philistine society itself eventually becomes mixed.
Exactly. Newcomers and local Canaanite populations interact.
Another identity being formed rather than delivered intact.
Precisely.
Now, the claim that originally interested me. Did Ramesses defeat the Peliset and settle them in Canaan?
We must be more cautious than that.
What does the Egyptian evidence actually say?
Papyrus Harris says Ramesses brought defeated enemies under Egyptian control and placed captives in strongholds.
Does it clearly say those strongholds were in Canaan?
No.
Does Ramesses say, I settled the Peliset on the Philistine coast?
No.
Then, where did that interpretation come from?
Historians combined Egyptian texts with archaeology, showing new populations appearing on the southern Canaanite coast.
A reconstruction.
A plausible reconstruction in some forms, but nevertheless a reconstruction.
Pots say one thing, Pharaoh says another. The historian arranges the marriage.
Occasionally without obtaining consent from either party.
Could Egypt have used captured or surrendered groups as soldiers?
Certainly. Egypt had a long history of incorporating foreigners into military service.
The Shurden themselves had served Egypt before.
Exactly.
So the categories enemy, mercenary, migrant, and settler can overlap.
Very much so.
Which ruins another tidy theory.
History regards tidiness as suspicious behavior.
Now, let me revive my original idea.
I knew you would.
Could Ramesses III's Sea Peoples campaign somehow lie behind the Exodus story?
Directly, the theory encounters several serious problems.
Chronology first.
Israel is already named in Canaan on the Merneptah stele around 1207 or 1208 BCE.
Ramesses III's famous Sea Peoples campaign occurs roughly a generation later.
Yes.
So he cannot have created Israel by depositing Sea Peoples in Canaan.
Precisely. Israel already existed.
Geography next.
Early Philistine communities are centered mainly along the southern coastal plain.
Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath.
The famous Philistine cities.
Early Israel appears, particularly in the Central Highlands.
Correct.
Different regions.
Very much so.
Different material culture as well.
Yes.
Philistine sites show conspicuous connections outside Canaan.
Especially in their earlier phases.
Early Israel looks much more locally Canaanite.
Exactly.
And the Bible certainly does not remember Philistines as Israel's ancestors.
Quite the opposite.
Samson?
Philistines.
Saul?
Philistines.
David and Goliath?
Most famously.
So making the Peliset Israelites turns Goliath into an awkward relative.
The cousin nobody invited.
That family reunion writes itself.
Preferably at a distance.
So, my simple theory fails.
As an explanation for the origin of Israel, yes.
Ramesses III did not expel Israel from Egypt and plant it in Canaan.
Correct.
But I am still reluctant to throw away the entire connection.
And I think you are right.
Because something larger connects these events.
Exactly.
The Sea Peoples may not be Israelites.
Correct.
Ramesses III's battle may not be the Exodus.
Correct.
But the world that produced the Sea Peoples is also the world in which Israel emerges.
That is the important distinction.
Egyptian imperial power is weakening.
Yes.
Old city-state systems are changing.
Yes.
Populations are moving.
Yes.
New coastal societies appear.
Yes.
New highland societies appear.
Precisely.
And among those highland societies is Israel.
Yes.
So perhaps we should stop asking whether Sea Peoples were Israelites.
And ask what the whole transformation around 1200 BCE did to the populations from which Israel emerged.
Peoples often form when older identities cease to work.
Precisely.
The old map falls apart.
New maps become possible.
New alliances.
Yes.
New identities.
Yes.
New ways of understanding gods and traditions.
Quite possibly.
And new stories about where everybody came from.
Inevitably.
Then, let us build a hypothetical early Israel.
Very carefully.
Most of its people descend from populations already living in Canaan.
Reasonable.
Some may come from displaced or marginal groups.
Possible.
A smaller group may carry genuine memories of Egypt.
Possible.
Everyone lives in a land with a long memory of Egyptian imperial domination.
Historically grounded.
The old political system collapses.
Yes.
Migrants and refugees move through the region.
Yes.
New enemies appear along the coast.
Yes.
And all these experiences become raw material for collective identity.
That is a productive model.
Not one event becoming one story.
But many experiences becoming one story.
Egypt contributes one strand.
Perhaps several.
Forced labor another.
Possibly.
Escape.
Possibly.
Expulsion.
Possibly.
Egyptian rule in Canaan.
Certainly part of the historical background.
Migration.
Yes.
Social collapse.
Yes.
Wilderness traditions.
Perhaps.
Stories about ancestors and gods.
Inevitably.
And generations later, the strands are braided into Exodus.
Precisely.
So asking which single event was the Exodus may be like asking which raindrop caused a river.
Very good.
Thank you.
I shall mark the date.
That is my line.
Tradition changes in transmission.
Touch. This reminds me of the Trojan War.
A useful comparison, provided we do not push it too far.
Troy existed.
Certainly.
Warfare happened in that region.
Certainly.
But the Iliad is not a transcript from a Bronze Age war correspondent.
Precisely.
It contains memories, old places, inherited stories, poetry and material from different periods.
Yes.
So there may have been historical wars behind Troy without one event corresponding to the whole Iliad.
Exactly.
And historical experiences behind Exodus without one event corresponding to the whole book of Exodus.
Precisely.
But Exodus becomes more than a heroic story.
Much more.
It becomes a charter of identity.
Yes.
We were slaves in Egypt is not merely information about the past.
No, it becomes an argument about how Israel should live.
Treat the stranger justly, because you were strangers in Egypt.
Exactly.
Remember the vulnerable, because you remember vulnerability.
Precisely.
The story produces ethics.
And identity.
Even if not every Israelite ancestor was physically enslaved in Egypt.
The community learns to remember itself as a community of former slaves.
That is a remarkable national origin story.
Exceptionally so.
Most peoples prefer glorious ancestors.
Kings, warriors, founders, sons of gods.
Exodus gives us forced laborers.
A powerless population.
Their founding hero is a fugitive.
A reluctant fugitive.
Their national beginning is an escape.
Exactly.
Which may help explain why the story became so powerful later.
Particularly when Israel and Judah themselves experienced conquest and exile.
Assyria destroys the northern kingdom.
In the late 8th century BCE.
Babylon later destroys Jerusalem and the First Temple.
In the early 6th century BCE.
People lose land, kingship, and political independence.
Yes.
And they possess an older story in which their ancestors existed before possessing any land.
Precisely.
They were a people before they had a kingdom.
Yes.
Their identity rested upon covenant, not merely territory.
Exactly.
Then, Exodus becomes extraordinarily powerful in exile.
An inherited liberation story acquires fresh meaning under a new empire.
That does not mean exilic writers simply invented it.
An important distinction.
Old traditions can acquire new meanings.
Constantly.
We escaped empire once.
Therefore, empire does not have the final word.
We existed before we possessed the land.
Therefore, losing the land need not mean ceasing to exist.
That makes Exodus remarkably portable.
An excellent word for it.
Perhaps that also explains its astonishing afterlife.
Very much so.
Enslaved people have read it.
Yes.
Colonized people.
Yes.
Refugees.
Yes.
Political movements.
Repeatedly.
Because Exodus does not merely say that oppression existed.
It says Pharaoh can be defied.
And that is an uncomfortable story for pharaohs.
Exodus is a remarkably inconvenient text to leave lying around among oppressed people.
Which brings us back to history and memory.
Inevitably.
Historians want to know what happened.
Naturally.
But they must also ask why some events are remembered and millions of others disappear.
Precisely.
Memory selects.
Memory organizes.
Memory combines.
Memory interprets.
Memory exaggerates.
Certainly.
Memory sometimes invents.
Certainly.
Yet even a distorted memory can reveal something true about the people remembering.
Exactly.
Which finally brings us to our subtitle.
I have been dreading this.
An oral history is not worth the paper it's written on.
Very good.
Thank you.
Although in this period the oral history may be worth considerably more than the paper, since the paper has generally vanished.
You could not simply allow the joke to live.
I am a professor. We preserve jokes by explaining them until they become primary sources.
Professor, suppose someone now demands a straight answer.
Foolhardy person.
Did the Exodus happen?
We have no evidence for one enormous migration occurring on the scale and in the sequence described by the biblical narrative.
Most early Israel appears to have emerged substantially from within Canaan.
Yes.
Archaeology does not show one sweeping conquest matching Joshua city by city.
Correct.
But none of that proves that no group ever came from Egypt.
Precisely.
A smaller Egypt-derived group remains possible.
Yes.
Memories of forced labor are possible.
Yes.
Memories of migration, flight, or expulsion are possible.
Yes.
Egyptian domination of Canaan is part of the historical background.
Absolutely.
The Bronze Age collapse helps explain the world in which Israel emerged.
Very much so.
The Hyksos provide an older historical parallel.
But cannot simply be identified as Israelites.
The Habiru reveal a world filled with displaced and marginal people.
But Habiru cannot simply be translated as Hebrews.
The Sea Peoples belong to the upheaval surrounding Israel's emergence.
But the Peliset cannot simply be turned into Israelites.
And Ramesses III did not create Israel by deporting Sea Peoples into Canaan.
The chronology makes that impossible as an explanation of Israel's origin.
Because Israel was already there.
Exactly.
So we replace one question with another.
Usually the mark of a successful historical investigation.
Instead of, which event was the Exodus?
We ask, how did many different experiences become one Exodus?
Egypt.
Empire.
Forced labor.
Migration.
Escape.
Expulsion.
Collapse.
New identities.
Stories handed down.
Stories combined.
Stories reinterpreted.
Until scattered memories become one load-bearing national story.
Historically unreliable in some particulars.
Perhaps.
Historically revealing in its construction.
Very much so.
It may tell us imperfectly what happened in the late Bronze Age.
While telling us brilliantly what later Israelites believed made them Israel.
A people who had been slaves.
A people liberated from tyranny.
A people bound together by covenant.
And a people whose existence did not depend upon the permission of Pharaoh.
Which is probably why pharaohs have never been terribly fond of the story.
Quite.
And now we have made Did the Exodus Happen? Much more complicated than when we began.
Then our work here is complete.
I knew you would say that.
Predictability is the foundation of scholarship.
No, Professor. Footnotes are.
I stand corrected.
Next time, perhaps, we should ask whether the walls of Jericho really fell.
Splendid. Archaeological strata, disputed chronologies, collapsing walls and trumpets.
No trumpets.
History demands atmosphere.
The neighbors demand restraint.
Philistines.
Wrong side of the argument, Professor.
It has happened before.
This has been the Professor and the Heretic. I'm Cairistìona, and that was Professor Harold Harishchandra Higginsbottom.
That was.
I'm experimenting with the past tense.
I find it ominous.
Until next time.